Okay, today we're going to be doing a little bit of review, and then you're going to get a big chunk of work time. Okay, and during that work time, you can choose what kind of problems you want to work on. For the first part, you need to do the problems with me, just a few of them from each chapter. Okay, just to kind of get a wide-ranging review. I know it's good for you. All right, look at the top of the page here. It says review videos for HHA semester 1. I just made that this morning. Okay, there's one person talking, there's one person looking at the cell phone, and there's a lot of people not paying attention. Okay, so cell phones go away now. Hats come off your head. Thank you. I need your full attention. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to turn your iPad my way so that I can see that you're in the same spot as me. I need you with me here. All right, in a moment, you're going to have free open work time, but now is not that time. Okay, see this thing at the top? I took a long time to make that for you. That is a list of review videos that I made in either this year or in past years, and one of them was made by Mrs. Pretzel. These are review videos that you had before your chapter tests. So let's say that you had trouble with complex numbers. You just touch right there at the highlighted little link and pop the YouTube video. Tells you how to do that stuff. Pro tip, don't just watch the videos. Have paper out, do problems with the video. Unless you only want to remember 10% of it. Just hearing somebody talk, you'll remember 10% of it. All right, so take notes. Do problems with me. All right, but anyway, that's an option. It's a new option you didn't have until just now. And remember, if you're trying to prove to me, look, Mr. Server, all the review I did for the final, the way you do that is you take screenshots of the things you did. I get you can't screenshot yourself watching a video, but you can take notes on the video and then screenshot those. Okay, you can just take a picture of those. If you do them on paper, you can just take a regular picture with your camera on your iPad. All right, and you're going to drop all those in that Dropbox last day. All right, we did these two already. Check mark, check mark. So what's next? Complex numbers. So everybody open up complex numbers and find the worksheet that you will find buried in complex numbers. Let me get my check marks out of here. Hold on a second. And we're going to do this worksheet, and I'm just going to talk through some of the greatest hits. In a moment, I'll ask you to show me that you are with me, so stay with me. Okay, do you remember these? If so, do A with me right now. If you can't handle that one, it's a little scary. Here's the training wheels approach to it. That's the square root of 4 times the square root of -1. And that's the square root of 4 is 2. And the square root of -1 is I. So it's 2I. How many of you had 2I? Okay, good. I is definitely a step up level. Not this one, sorry. Let's instead do, I want to scroll down here. Let's do I as in ignoramus. That one. Okay, to start with, you should be able to simplify square root of -28. I know you don't know exactly what the decimal is, but you should be able to say it's like 2I root 3 or whatever it is. Would you please figure it out what that is? And then hint, you can factor something out of the top. And I bet you it's a 2 or a 4, because that way the part of the 8 would cancel off. Okay? Give this one a shot. Pause for a second. I want you to give it a try. So square root of 28. Would you agree 7 and 4 seem like kind of important on this? It's root 7 and root 4, and then a root -1, because it's -28. That's I, that's 2, and that's root 7. 2I root 7. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Awesome. Now we got to factor something out. Hey, you, what did you factor out at the top? 2. Awesome. There was a 2 in everything. So you take the 2 out, and what's left in here with the 4 there, what would that be instead? -2 plus and minus, and then I take the 2 out of this, and I get, yup, all over. I'm going to factor the 8 into 2 times 4. That way the 2's cancel. There's your final answer. Negative 2 plus or minus I root 7 all over 4. Any questions on that one? Okay. Here's another kind that we ran into in this section. Number 2, part B. That's a quadratic. You set it equal to 0. Well, it is equal to 0. And then if you can factor it, you should. I can't factor that. Some people would say it's already factored. No, it's not. Okay. You could multiply it all out and put it in the quadratic formula. That would solve it. But there's a much faster way. With quadratics, I like to think of if you can factor it, you should. But there's this really fast way to do this kind of. Everybody subtract 1 from both sides. Negative 1 equals x plus 2 squared. Then, who knows what to do next? Say it. Square it. And then square root of negative 1 is I. And then this is absolute value of x plus 2. I know a lot of people forgot that. When you square root a variable, it's absolute value. It happens all the time. It happens in honors pre-calc all the time, too. Or kids forget that. All right, then what does it mean to have an absolute value? That you do it twice. You do x plus 2 is I, and x plus 2 is negative I. And then you just have to subtract 2 from both sides, and you got it. I like to put it all together then and say x equals, and it's plus and minus I, and it's a negative 2. So I'd say negative 2 and a plus and minus I. That's a nice clean way to put it all together. All right, remember me saying if you can factor it, you should? Hold on just a second. Technical difficulties here. Come on. That one can be factored. Remember that? How do you factor x squared minus 9? What is it? X plus 3, x minus 3. And you could have used quadratic formula. You could have used that technique we just used a second ago. But if you can factor it, you should, because look at how fast I get the answers. Is that the answer? No, that's factored. What are the answers then? The things that make it 0, which are 3 and negative 3. Boom, done. Not faster than quadratic formula, which would have worked, which would have taken a long time to get you the same thing. All right. Next kind I want to talk about is in here. Look at number 3. You're going to get I squareds. When you multiply this out, you're going to get I squared here and there. What is I squared actually equal to? Negative 1. Awesome. So wherever you get an I squared, you should put negative 1. All right, so your answer for this one would start with 20I squared, which then later you're going to replace with a negative 1, where the I squared is. And then you're going to have plus 12I, and this one minus 25I, and then this one minus 15. You put it all together. These are like terms, so they can go together. But the I squared is the special thing. It's negative 1. Okay. One last thing that isn't on this sheet, but I think might be on the test. I to the 7th minus I to the 5th. Hint, I to the 7 is really a whole bunch of I squareds. And sometimes there's a leftover I. Figure out what this simplifies to. It might be like negative 1 plus I or something like that. Figure out what I to the 7th is. Figure out what negative I to the 5th is. And get an answer. I'll pause for a second. Let me try that. Let's see how you did. I to the 7th. I would have said I squared. And another I squared and another I squared. A smart way to do that is to the 3rd with an extra I. That makes a total of I to the 7th. And then this is negative 1 to the 3rd I. And that makes negative I. How many of you that knew that I to the 7th was negative I? Awesome. Then how about I to the 5th? Well, it's very similar. I squared with an extra I. That's negative 1. That's negative 1. Together that makes positive 1i. That makes positive I. This one was negative I. This one was positive I. Put them together, what do you got? 0. The answer is 0. Oh, wait a minute. I think you're right. Hold on. This one was positive I, but we're subtracting positive I. Sorry. So this is negative I minus I. You're right. Negative 2i. Oopie. There you go. Okay. That wasn't even on a sheet. If you're like, what problem was that? I made it up because I know we did those, and they were one of the hardest ones we did, and I think that's on the final. Okay. If nothing else, it helps you practice I-squareds, which is for sure a good thing. All right, next topic. Let's go back into Schoology and see what happens after complex numbers. After complex numbers, we have quadratics A. That had a lot of stuff on quadratics. So first off, let's talk about these different forms. Do you remember vertex form versus general form versus factored form? Remember all those forms? I'll give you an example for each one. I would write this in. Please turn your iPads my way. I want to catch somebody. All right, caught 3 people. Come on now. Get to where you're supposed to be. Come check on you in a minute. This is quadratics A. Okay. You should have y equals, well, okay, that's the general category. Up down here, y equals x minus 3 squared plus 1. That's an example of vertex form. Does that ring a bell? And do you remember that the vertex is not negative 3, 1? It would in fact be 3, 1. Notice that that number on the inside, you do the opposite of that. So it is used to identify, what's it used to identify? The vertex. In this case, the vertex would be 3, 1. Okay, for general form. To get that, generally you just multiply any of the other forms out. Pick any form, multiply it all the way out. You'll have general form. Okay, so like this one. Could I multiply that out? Sure I could. As long as you don't do it the dumb way, x squared and 3 squared is not how you multiply that out. You got to go x minus 3 and x minus 3 and multiply that all the way out and then add 1 because of this. Okay, that would be how to find general form, and they generally look like this. They got an x squared in them because they're quadratics. It's the point of the unit. Then, what's it used for? It's not good at finding the roots. It's not good at finding the zeros or the x-intercepts. It's good for the y-intercept. There it is. Finish this sentence for me. The y-intercept is where you put in x equals 0. Okay, good. And if I put in x equals 0, the first 2 parts cancel, and so this is good for y-intercept. Last but not least, factored form. It looks like this. That's factored form. What are they good for? The roots, the zeros, the x-intercepts, the solutions. That's the main thing it's good for. X int, which is also known, aka, also known as roots, zeros, solutions. All right. So do you remember the axis of symmetry? That's that little dotted line that runs down here. What would that be for this one? X equals 2. Oops, I just put it in the wrong spot. That should be here. The vertex should go there. Now, I can see it just because I can like look on the graph and go, it's over 2 and down 1. But how do you find the vertex form? There is an equation that tells you vertex form. Does anybody know it? This is one of the weakest things for kids at Minnetonka High School, is the vertex formula. It's very short. What do you think? That's it. That's the vertex formula. Negative b over 2a. So if I had this all multiplied out and I knew the equation for it was like, I'm not saying this is, well, actually I could do it. I could do it. I'll just use vertex form. It's, the vertex here is at 2 comma negative 1. By the way, it's stretched a little bit. Do you notice it's counting by 2's here and it's only counting by 1's on the x-axis? So it looks a little stretched, but it's 2 comma 1. So what's the vertex form of this puppy? It would go like this. Y equals x minus 2 squared minus 1. That's vertex form. Then I could multiply it all the way out and get general form. Generally, you just multiply this out. Hint, that's what I'd do if I were you. Then maybe it factors, or you could just use these. X minus 1, x minus 3. That ring a bell? Firing answers at you as fast as I can, just so we can get through this without too much pain. A lot of people don't know this one. Kind of a good one to know. Then there's that other thing called the discriminant, where if it's positive, you have 2 answers. If it's negative, you don't have any answers. That one comes from this, the other biggest, most important formula of them all. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Do you remember which part the discriminant is? Yep. Most people get that one right, but they don't remember the other one. Do you see the other one? The other one's sitting right here. The vertex one's negative b over 2a. This one is called discriminant. What if that discriminant was negative? You'd have a square root of a negative, so there wouldn't be any solutions. All right, this is the discrim. This is the vertex formula. Now, there's another way to get the vertex. It's to do this thing called complete the square. Remember doing that? All right, I think that's coming on our next worksheet, but I think I'm almost brought you to the edge of what you can do for one day and still have a bunch of time to work. So I'm almost done here. Finish this sentence for me. The x-intercept is where you stick in y equals, and the y-intercept would be where you'd stick in x equals 0. Now, if it's a picture, it's obvious. There's the y-intercept, there's the x-intercepts. But you're in an honors class, it's not going to be that obvious. They're going to give you an equation and then ask you the x-intercepts. So you stick in y equals 0, or the y-intercepts, so you stick in x equals 0. All right. And then factored form, again, once you get it all multiplied out, then maybe you can factor it, and it'll look like this. And you can get the roots that way, or they're also known as the zeros. Set it equal to 0. And what if this was like 4x minus 3? Then kids all the time say, so the roots are negative 7 and positive 3. Nope. This one you'd have to set the equation equal to 0. 4x minus 3 equals 0. 4x equals 3. X equals 3/4. So make sure, if there's something more complicated than just like an x minus 3, set the whole thing equal to 0. All right, that was pretty fast, but covered a lot of things that'll be on your final there. And I need to have time for you to ask individual questions. So you can still ask me any questions you want. We're just going to do it now. Individual time instead of in front of the whole group time. I was going to do a top 20 tomorrow. Changed my mind. I think you'll benefit from more work time. So if you want to do a top 20, it'll still be really good for you. If you studied, it's a good thing. You learned math. You'll do better on your final. But if all of you wanted to study it, all you'd have to do is go to davidserver.com. You know where they are. All right. I'm sorry. I did change my mind. I just thought, you know, if I take 20 minutes plus another 10 to grade it, that's like half an hour where kids could have been asking me questions. If you really are serious about top 20, first of all, I'm doing it next semester. So if you have me, you didn't waste your time. It's going to happen. Top 20. I'm going to give you it on like day 2, just like last time. Remember at the beginning of the semester, everybody gets like a, I don't know, an 8 out of 20 or something. Then you get time to work on it, and then give it to you for real, put it in the grade book. It's going to be like that. But we can wait till next semester for that. And if you're leaving me next semester, you can be like, yes, I don't have to do that. But also, you won't be as prepared for your ACT. Okay, that's all I got for you for today.